Have you ever wondered what you'd tell your younger self if you could go back in time with all the wisdom you have today? Imagine having the clarity that comes from nearly a century of experiences, mistakes, and successes. What would that version of you prioritize differently? Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man and one of history's greatest investors, offers us something perhaps even more valuable than his investment strategies. His perspective on what truly matters after 60 years of age. Has this ever happened to you? You've spent decades chasing wealth, status, or achievement only to realize that what you've been valuing might not be what matters most in the long run. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. By the time you're 60, the margin for error is gone, Munger warns with the straightforward candor that made him legendary. You've already made most of your mistakes. The only question is, do you keep compounding them, or do you finally wise up? What makes Munger's perspective so powerful is its brutal honesty. Past 60, your most valuable resource isn't your wealth. It's your time. The days of having endless tomorrows are behind you. Stay with me until the end, because this shift in mindset could transform everything about how you approach your remaining decades. Most people's lives aren't derailed by extraordinary disasters, but by ordinary stupidity. The envy that poisons contentment, the debt that creates vulnerability, the overconfidence that leads to catastrophic decisions, relationships that drain rather than nourish, and habits that slowly erode health and happiness. The compounding you ignored in your 20s and 30s doesn't suddenly appear at 65, Munger explains. What's fascinating, and what you're about to discover might surprise you, is that the only meaningful compounding left isn't your money. It's your daily behaviors, your health choices, and your temperament that compound most powerfully in later life. Munger witnessed the Great Depression firsthand, watching families who believed themselves secure on Monday become destitute by Friday. This searing experience taught him that survival ultimately trumps brilliance. A young fool can rebuild from zero, but an old fool rarely gets another chance. This wisdom contradicts much of what we're taught about success and achievement. We're told to chase brilliance, to take bigger risks, to leverage ourselves to the maximum. But what if that conventional wisdom is exactly backward once you've reached your 6th decade? What if the path to genuine freedom, security, and contentment requires something entirely different? As we explore Munger's remarkable insights, prepare to question assumptions you've held for decades. The principles that brought you here may not be the ones that will serve you best going forward. If you value timeless wisdom over fleeting trends, hit that subscribe button now. Join our community of forward-thinking individuals who understand that true wealth comes from avoiding life's common pitfalls. The transformation that happens in our thinking as we age isn't simply about becoming more cautious. It's about recognizing the profound difference between true wisdom and mere cleverness. Munger's experiences during the Great Depression left an indelible mark on his decision-making framework. He watched as seemingly secure fortunes evaporated overnight, as banks closed their doors and businesses collapsed under financial pressure. My father's clients, most of them, never recovered, Munger reveals. This behind-the-scenes glimpse into financial devastation taught him a lesson that would shape his entire approach to wealth. Survival beats brilliance every single time. The revelation here isn't just about money, it's about the mindset shift required when time becomes your most precious commodity. When you're young, recovery from catastrophic mistakes is possible. You have decades to rebuild, to start over, to try again. But the journey changes dramatically after 60. The margin for error shrinks to almost nothing. A young fool can recover, Munger states with characteristic directness. An old fool stays a fool. This hidden truth isn't meant to discourage, but to illuminate the path forward with clarity and purpose. So what does this survival-focused approach look like in practice? Munger's checklist for those over 60 represents a distillation of 9 decades of observing what actually works versus what merely sounds impressive. First, stop chasing hot investments. The promise of getting rich quick almost always delivers the opposite result, getting poor slowly. The impact of speculative losses past 60 is devastating, precisely because you lack the recovery time needed to rebuild. Second, make the difficult but necessary decision to distance yourself from people who bring chaos, drama, and poor judgment into your life. Their problems inevitably become your problems, draining the energy and focus you need for your own well-being. Third, abandon the fiction that you'll magically transform tomorrow. The habit you won't change today is the habit you'll carry to your grave. This applies to everything from health choices to financial disciplines to relationship patterns. Perhaps most importantly, release the grip that envy has on your happiness. Comparing yourself to others who got luckier or started earlier only poisons your present without changing your past. As Munger notes with characteristic bluntness, envy doesn't make them poorer, it makes you miserable. None of this sounds particularly exciting or revolutionary. There are no secret formulas, no proprietary systems, no shortcuts to circumvent the basic principles of human psychology and financial reality. But therein lies the profound wisdom. The most valuable truths are often the simplest. Now, I want to go even deeper into what Munger discovered about the dangerous illusion of overconfidence and how it derails even the most intelligent people in their later years. Write in the comments, survival beats brilliance, if this perspective has shifted your thinking about what really matters after 60. The journey to wisdom often reveals counterintuitive truths that challenge conventional thinking. One of Munger's most profound insights turns the pursuit of success completely upside down. By 60, you already know most of what you'll ever know. The question is whether you finally start acting like it. This revelation strikes at the heart of a paradox many face in their later years. The accumulation of knowledge isn't the challenge. It's the application of what you already know that makes all the difference. The breakthrough comes not from discovering new information, but from finally implementing the wisdom you've accumulated over decades. Munger himself shatters the myth that exceptional intelligence is the primary driver of wealth. "I didn't get rich by being smarter than everyone," he confesses with characteristic candor. "I got rich by avoiding the traps most people insist on falling into." This shift in perspective, from pursuing brilliance to avoiding stupidity, represents a fundamental mindset transformation that few achieve regardless of age or experience. Behind the scenes of Munger's success lies a disciplined approach to identifying and avoiding common pitfalls rather than chasing elusive moments of genius. The strategy is deceptively simple, yet profoundly effective. Recognize the patterns of failure that repeatedly trap otherwise intelligent people, then systematically steer clear of them. Perhaps the most insidious of these traps is envy, what Munger describes as the only sin that isn't any fun. His analysis is both humorous and penetrating. Lust can be fun. Gluttony, at least you get a good meal. Even anger can give you a short thrill. But envy, you just sit there stewing while the other guy enjoys his yacht. The psychological impact of comparison is devastating, particularly in later years when the scorecard should matter less, not more. By 60, you should know better, Munger admonishes. Yet many continue measuring themselves against others, guaranteeing what he calls a bitter old age. Throughout his long life, Munger observed a consistent pattern among those who found genuine contentment. The happiest people I've known weren't the richest, he reveals. They were the ones who stopped keeping score. This decision, to abandon the comparative mindset, represents one of the most liberating choices available, especially as time becomes increasingly precious. When we measure ourselves against others' achievements, we surrender control over our own satisfaction. We place our happiness in the hands of external circumstances we cannot influence. There's always someone with a bigger balance sheet, Munger points out. Always someone who got luckier. The path forward becomes clear. Redirect the energy wasted on comparison toward appreciation of what you've already built. This doesn't require ignoring opportunities for growth. It simply means refusing to let envy poison your present satisfaction. Now let's examine how Munger's partnership with Warren Buffett exemplifies these principles in action, and how their unique relationship created one of history's most successful business collaborations. Comment below with freedom from comparison if you've noticed how measuring yourself against others has affected your happiness and peace of mind. Digging deeper into the psychology of comparison reveals an uncomfortable truth that few are willing to confront. When we measure our worth against someone else's achievements, we're not just making a casual observation, we're revealing something profound about our self-perception. As Munger puts it with characteristic directness, what envy really is a lack of self-respect. This revelation strikes at the core of why comparison is so destructive, particularly in later life. You're saying I'd rather measure my life by someone else's scoreboard than by my own values, Munger explains. That's weakness, pure and simple. And this weakness, he warns, becomes increasingly dangerous as we age. The transformation from external validation to internal confidence represents one of the most critical mindset shifts available to us. Throughout his long career, Munger witnessed countless successful individuals self-destruct, not because of market forces or bad luck, but because they couldn't tolerate seeing peers accumulate more wealth than themselves. They already had enough. They were secure, he recounts, describing a pattern that repeats with tragic consistency. But envy gnawed at them until they made some dumb move, buying overpriced tech stocks, doubling down on bad real estate, chasing the next big thing. The aftermath is predictable yet devastating, and when it collapsed, they weren't just poor, they were humiliated. This journey from comparison to contentment isn't merely philosophical, it's practical survival wisdom for anyone past 60. Warren Buffett and Munger often joked that avoiding envy is the easiest competitive advantage in the world, precisely because so few people can master it. But what replaces comparison once we've released its grip? Munger's answer might surprise you: gratitude. Not the superficial kind that populates social media feeds, but something deeper and more authentic. What does compound at 60? Munger asks. Gratitude, not the fake social media kind. Real gratitude, the kind that lets you wake up and say, I'm still here, my bills are paid, my family doesn't hate me, that's enough. This perspective represents one of the most powerful realignments available to us as we age. The scoreboard that once seemed so important, net worth, professional achievements, status symbols, naturally shrinks. The metrics that truly matter emerge with greater clarity: relationships, character, wisdom, peace of mind. When you're in your 80s and 90s, nobody cares about your bank account, Munger observes. They care if you're decent company, if you're still curious, if you can still laugh at yourself. This shift happens whether we prepare for it or not. The only question is whether we'll recognize and embrace it willingly or resist it to our detriment. The liberation that comes from this recalibration can't be overstated. When we stop fixating on external measures of success, we create space for genuine appreciation of what we have rather than endless hunger for what we lack. Let's explore how Munger's approach to overconfidence offers another dimension of this wisdom. Comment below with "Grateful Daily" if you've noticed how practicing gratitude has transformed your perspective on what truly matters in life. Even the most successful among us carry regrets, decisions that haunt us not because they were unavoidable, but because they were entirely preventable. Munger's candor about his own mistakes reveals a refreshing humility rarely seen in financial titans. "I could have been twice as rich if I hadn't made one dumb mistake 50 years ago, he confesses. That's not humility, that's arithmetic. This remarkable transparency offers us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the mindset of one of history's greatest investors. What makes his admission particularly valuable isn't just the acknowledgement of error, but his precise diagnosis of its cause. The mistake that cost him hundreds of millions didn't stem from lack of information or poor analysis. It came from something far more insidious: ego. "I thought I was too smart to bother," he explains. "I wanted something prettier, more sophisticated, more worthy of my brainpower. The plain obvious deal didn't interest me." This revelation challenges the conventional wisdom about financial decision-making. The greatest danger isn't ignorance, but its opposite, the illusion of superior knowledge. People think the biggest mistakes in investing come from ignorance, Munger observes. That's wrong. They come from knowing too much, or thinking you do. This hidden truth applies far beyond investing. It shapes our entire journey through life, especially as we accumulate experiences that can lead to dangerous overconfidence. Subscribe now to continue our journey through the wisdom of history's greatest thinkers and investors. Each video unpacks principles that stand the test of time, the kind of insights that transform not just portfolios, but lives. By the time we reach 60, we've typically achieved some measure of success. We've navigated careers, raised families, built some financial security. The transformation that should occur, but often doesn't, is recognizing how these achievements can paradoxically increase our vulnerability rather than diminish it. The danger is you start thinking you can't be wrong, Munger warns, and that's when you make the catastrophic move. He describes watching people near retirement pour savings into questionable investments because they thought they saw something others didn't. The aftermath is predictable and devastating. 9 times out of 10, what they saw was an illusion, and illusions are expensive. What emerges from Munger's experiences is a counterintuitive but powerful principle. The path to long-term success isn't paved with moments of genius, but with consistent humility. You don't need brilliance, he insists. You need humility. You need to admit daily that you're capable of screwing up. This mindset shift from pursuing brilliance to embracing humility represents one of the most profound yet underappreciated revelations in Munger's philosophy. The practical implementation is equally straightforward. Structure your affairs so that when you inevitably screw up, you don't go broke. This approach saved Munger from his own mistakes. His error cost him millions in potential gains, but didn't sink him because he avoided leverage, overconcentration, and betting everything on a single outcome. The impact of this prudent structure can't be overstated, especially past 60 when recovery time shrinks dramatically. Let's explore how Munger's approach to challenging his own most cherished beliefs created a mental framework that protected him from the cognitive traps that ensnare most investors. Drop "Humility saved me" in the comments if you've experienced how admitting your limitations actually protected you from making bigger mistakes. One of the most profound mental transformations that few people achieve, regardless of intelligence or success, is the ability to systematically challenge their own thinking. The older I get, Munger observes, the more I notice people don't actually think. They just rearrange their prejudices. This insight cuts straight to the core of cognitive decline that has nothing to do with memory or processing speed. It's about intellectual calcification. By 60, most of us have repeated our opinions so often that doubt feels like weakness rather than wisdom. We mistake familiarity for truth. The conviction that hardens around our beliefs becomes the very prison that prevents further growth. Munger's antidote to this common pattern is refreshingly direct. I spent my whole career learning how to kill my own best-loved ideas. The psychological breakthrough here isn't just acknowledging we might be wrong, it's actively seeking evidence that contradicts our most cherished beliefs. Warren and Munger called this practice, destroy your own wrong ideas early before they destroy you. This deliberate self-skepticism represents one of the most powerful yet underutilized mental frameworks available, especially as we age. Throughout decades of investing, Munger witnessed how unshakable certainty preceded catastrophic losses. I've seen people cling to the market always goes up right before a 50% crash. I've seen people cling to real estate never loses value right before it did. The revelation here is that confidence without evidence isn't wisdom, it's ego. And ego is extraordinarily expensive. The path forward requires a fundamental identity shift that few accomplish. Embracing the phrase, I don't know. Munger has uttered these three words thousands of times throughout his career. That's even better because if you admit you don't know, you stop gambling on things you don't understand. This intellectual humility dovetails perfectly with another of Munger's cornerstone principles, the shift from employee to owner thinking. Most people spend their whole lives as careerists, he notes. They follow orders, polish resumes, and hope someone higher up notices. This journey of conformity provides the illusion of security, but rarely leads to either wealth or independence. The metaphor Munger uses is particularly vivid. Working for a paycheck is like running on a treadmill. You sweat a lot, but you stay in the same place. The alternative, ownership thinking, represents a complete paradigm shift. Whether owning businesses, investments, or simply your own decisions, ownership is what gets you off the eternal treadmill. What's particularly insightful is how Munger contrasts these mindsets as we age. While careerism might seem safer initially, by 60, those safe decisions often crystallize into dependence on companies, pensions, and systems that may not honor their promises. This realization explains the bitterness many retirees experience after decades of organizational loyalty. The owner, meanwhile, measures success differently, by cash flow, autonomy, and time, rather than titles, status, or approval. Let's examine how Munger's Depression-era childhood shaped his survival-focused approach to risk and security. Type owner mindset in the comments if you're working to break free from the employee mentality and take more control over your financial destiny. The formative experiences of our early years often shape our approach to risk and decision-making for a lifetime. Born in 1924, Munger's childhood unfolded during one of history's most catastrophic economic collapses. The Great Depression wasn't some abstract case study, he recalls. It was neighbors losing farms, fathers out of work, families cutting dinner into smaller pieces so everyone could pretend they weren't hungry. This first-hand witness to systemic collapse embedded a fundamental truth into Munger's worldview. Intelligence is no defense when the system itself breaks. His father, a smart, educated, respectable lawyer, watched his client base evaporate overnight when the banks collapsed. This behind-the-scenes reality shaped Munger's lifelong conviction that survival ultimately trumps brilliance. The revelation that transformed his approach to wealth wasn't about finding better opportunities. It was about avoiding catastrophic risks. During the Depression, those who weathered the storm weren't the brilliant risk-takers, but the cautious planners who avoided debt, maintained cash reserves, and lived beneath their means. Meanwhile, the clever ones, highly leveraged, optimistic, convinced of permanent prosperity, faced financial ruin from which many never recovered. This mindset crystallized into what would become Berkshire Hathaway's guiding philosophy. It's not some miracle of genius, Munger insists. It's a monument to survival. The hidden truth behind their legendary success wasn't finding perfect investments, but structuring their decisions around a simple question. What happens if we're wrong? For anyone past 60, this survival-focused approach becomes even more critical. With limited recovery time, one financial disaster can permanently derail your security. The Depression's lessons remain relevant decades later. Cash provides oxygen when you need it most. Debt tightens like a noose in crisis. Optimism without caution leads to blindness. And humility about the future prevents catastrophic bets. This survival mindset naturally connects to what Munger considers the cornerstone principles for sanity after 60. With characteristic directness, he distills decades of observation into 3 simple rules: avoid debt, avoid drama, and avoid dumb people. Those 3 will save you more misery than any stock tip or self-help book, he promises. Debt at 60 plus isn't merely inconvenient, it's potentially catastrophic. When income becomes fixed or declining, debt payments remain inflexible. You can't go broke if you don't owe anyone, Munger observes, highlighting a principle that seems obvious yet remains widely ignored. Equally important is avoiding drama, the emotional turbulence created by those who thrive on conflict. Most of life's misery comes from entangling yourself with people who create chaos, Munger notes. His intentionally boring life, free from screaming matches, lawsuits, and toxic relationships, allowed for the steady, quiet compounding that ultimately produced extraordinary results. The final piece of this transformational approach involves careful selection of who you allow into your inner circle. Let's explore how Munger's remarkable partnership with Warren Buffett exemplifies these principles in action. Write in the comments, "Boring wins," if you've discovered how avoiding unnecessary complications has brought more peace to your life than chasing excitement. The extraordinary success of Munger's partnership with Warren Buffett stands as a testament to principles that defy conventional wisdom about business relationships. While most partnerships fracture under the weight of ego, greed, or miscommunication, theirs flourished for nearly 6 decades. What made this collaboration different wasn't luck or circumstance, it was an intentional architecture that fostered extraordinary results. First, we had complementary brains, Munger explains, revealing the synergy that powered their success. Warren possessed an uncanny ability to devour financial statements like a kid reading comic books, while Munger gravitated toward the broader picture, mental models, psychology, and decision-making frameworks. This cognitive diversity created a natural system of checks and balances that protected them from individual blind spots. Perhaps more remarkably, their partnership operated almost entirely on trust. No contracts, no legal teams breathing down our necks, just a handshake, Munger recalls. This foundation of absolute reliability, knowing with certainty that commitments would be honored, created an environment where ideas could flow freely without the friction of suspicion or ulterior motives. The revelation that truly distinguishes their partnership from most business relationships was their shared immunity to status symbols and material excess. Neither of us wanted a yacht or a private island or a life filled with sycophants, Munger notes. We wanted independence and rationality. This alignment of core values eliminated the power struggles and priority conflicts that typically derail collaborations. Their disagreements, and there were many, centered on ideas rather than egos. They could argue vigorously for hours over potential investments, then break for lunch, laughing, because neither of us cared about winning. We cared about being right. This crucial distinction transformed potential conflict into productive dialogue that strengthened their decisions rather than their individual positions. Behind the scenes, their partnership was remarkably unglamorous. People imagine partnerships as grand dramatic alliances, Munger observes. Ours was boring. We read, we talked, we invested. Yet this mundane daily practice, sustained over decades, compounded into one of history's most successful business ventures. This journey of partnership illuminates a broader truth about wealth creation that contradicts most popular financial advice. The hidden wisdom isn't about finding the next hot stock or developing sophisticated trading strategies. It's about something far more fundamental: avoiding stupidity. Everyone wants to know the secret to getting rich, Munger remarks. They expect some magic formula, some hidden strategy. The revelation he offers instead cuts against our desire for complexity. It's not magic, it's discipline. This mindset transformation, from seeking brilliance to avoiding disasters, represents perhaps Munger's most valuable insight. I didn't become wealthy because I was the smartest man alive, he confesses. I became wealthy because I avoided the disasters other people walk straight into. The list of pitfalls he sidestepped sounds remarkably ordinary. No excessive leverage, no gambling, no chasing hot tips, no destructive personal habits. Let's explore how this principle of avoiding stupidity applies to the fundamental arithmetic of financial security. Share partnership wisdom in the comments if you've experienced how finding the right people to think with has made all the difference in your life decisions. The fundamental wisdom Munger offers us transcends investing strategy or financial planning. It speaks to the essence of what makes life worthwhile, especially as our time becomes more precious. His approach reminds us that wealth isn't just measured in dollars, but in freedom, peace of mind, and the quality of our relationships. I didn't plan to become a billionaire, Munger reflects with characteristic simplicity. That wasn't the goal. I just overshot by consistently avoiding mistakes. This revelation cuts through the noise of complicated financial schemes and gets to the heart of sustainable prosperity: discipline, patience, and letting the power of compounding work quietly over time. The arithmetic of financial security remains astonishingly straightforward, regardless of age. If you spend less than you earn, you'll be fine. If you spend more than you earn, nobody can help you. Yet despite this simplicity, countless highly educated, well-compensated professionals find themselves financially vulnerable because they treated money like an unlimited resource. Munger's lifetime of observation reveals a pattern that defies our expectations about wealth. It's often the quiet plumber who saved consistently, avoided debt, and invested in boring index funds who ends up truly secure, not flashy, but independent and free. Meanwhile, the status-conscious professional with the impressive address and luxury car struggles to maintain appearances while drowning in financial anxiety. If you've stayed with me through this exploration of Munger's wisdom, you're clearly someone who values substance over quick fixes. That's precisely the kind of person who will benefit from the journey we're on with this channel. I'd love to have you join us for more insights like these. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, so we don't lose touch. The conversation we've shared today is just the beginning. If this message resonated with you on a personal level, I'd be grateful if you'd leave me a comment saying "wisdom over wealth," so I know who made it all the way through. And if you found value in these insights, a simple thumbs up helps tremendously in sharing these ideas with others who might benefit. Right over here is a video that extends these principles into practical strategies for building unshakable financial security regardless of market conditions. Click there and let's continue unpacking these timeless ideas together.